On that gloomy November night in Memphis, 1954, 19-year-old Elvis Presley stood in the alley behind Sun Records with his broken guitar in hand. Inside, three of the music industry's most powerful figures were talking about him, and what they were saying was about ending this kid's career. But Elvis didn't know this. If he hadn't been there that night, rock and roll history could have been written completely differently. This is the real story no one ever heard. In Tupelo, Mississippi, where Elvis was born in 1935, music was everywhere, but money was nowhere. His twin brother Jesse Garon died at birth, leaving Elvis to grow up alone. His mother always told him, "Elvis, you have to live for two people." Maybe that's why he always wanted more, sang louder. The Presley house on Old Saltillo Road was barely standing. Vernon worked whatever jobs he could find, picking cotton, driving trucks, anything to put food on the table. But even in their poverty, there was music. Gladys would sing gospel hymns while she cooked. Vernon had an old harmonica, and every Sunday, the family attended the First Assembly of God Church, where the music would make the walls shake. Elvis got his first guitar when he was 11. He actually wanted a bicycle, but his mother insisted, "Bicycles are dangerous, guitars are safe." That guitar cost $7.50, $7 hardware store. From the moment he held it, everything changed for the young boy. He wasn't just Elvis anymore, he was Elvis with music. The Presleys moved to Memphis in 1948 so Vernon could find work. But for Elvis, Memphis became his music university. The city was alive with sounds, jazz from the clubs, gospel from the churches, blues from Beale Street, country from the radio. It was like the whole world of music had opened up before him. The family lived in Lauderdale Courts, a housing project. Elvis would walk down to Beale Street, where he heard B.B. King, Muddy Waters, and other blues musicians. Their music touched his soul deeply, but a question haunted the young white kid. Could he make this music too? During high school at Humes High, his friends thought he was weird. He would cut his hair differently, dress differently. "Elvis, why do you act like this?" they'd ask. "I don't know, it just makes me feel like myself," he'd respond. Without realizing it, he was searching for his identity, trying to find who he was supposed to be. In the summer of 1953, Elvis walked into Sun Records at 706 Union Avenue. He paid $4 to record a song, supposedly for his mother, but the real reason was to meet Sam Phillips, the legendary producer who had recorded blues greats and supposedly said, "If I could find a white boy with a black sound, I'd make millions." Marion Keisker, Sam's assistant, was there that day. She listened as the young man sang. "Who are you, son?" she asked. "Elvis Presley, ma'am." "And what do you sound like?" "I don't sound like nobody, ma'am." Something in his answer struck her. She took a note. Elvis Presley, good voice, follow up. But then months went by with nothing. Elvis kept working, driving a truck for Crown Electric Company, making $35 a week, wondering if his chance would ever come. Almost a year later, Marion called. "Elvis, Sam wants to talk with you." The young man's heart raced as he made his way to the studio. Sam Phillips introduced him to Scotty Moore on guitar and Bill Black on bass. "Now kid, what do you know?" They worked for hours trying different songs, but nothing special came out. Sam's face showed disappointment. During a break, Elvis started fooling around with Arthur Crudup's "That's All Right," but he sang it faster, more energetically, adding his own spin. Scotty picked up his guitar and joined in. Bill grabbed his bass. Suddenly, the music was electric, charged with an energy none of them had felt before. Sam burst from the control room. "That's it! Do it again!" This was the birth moment of rock and roll, but none of them knew it then. They just knew they'd stumbled onto something different, something that made them feel alive. The recording started playing on local radio station WHBQ, and reactions were intensely mixed. Dewey Phillips played it on his Red Hot and Blue show, and the phone lines exploded. Some people loved it, others hated it. "Is this black music or white music?" they asked. This uncertainty disturbed the music industry's power players. That November night, three men met secretly in the small office behind Sun Records. Steve Scholes from RCA Records, Colonel Tom Parker, and a Columbia Records representative. Outside, Elvis stood with his guitar, waiting for Sam Phillips, unaware that inside these men were discussing his fate. "This kid is dangerous," Steve Scholes said through the thin walls. "He doesn't realize what he's doing. He's mixing up the music, confusing people. Radio stations don't know where to file his records." Colonel Parker, not yet Elvis's manager, replied, "But look at the response. Kids are going crazy for this music. We can make money with him, if we can control him." The third man was more decisive. "Either we control and domesticate him, or we destroy him." If this kid continues like this, he'll turn our industry upside down. We stop him from being played on radios, cancel his concerts. We have the power." Outside, Elvis's heart turned to ice as he heard fragments of their conversation. They were planning to finish him, or at least change him into something he wasn't. Then Sam Phillips emerged from the building. But he wasn't alone. Marion Kiesker and a young journalist accompanied him. Peter Guralnick, a music writer who understood what was happening better than most industry veterans. "Elvis," Sam said, "let me introduce you. Peter writes about music and wants to interview you." As Peter and Elvis talked that night, walking down Union Avenue, the young singer began to understand he wasn't just making music, he was changing something fundamental. "Elvis," Peter said, "you're removing boundaries in music. You're combining black music with white music, sacred with secular, country with rhythm and blues. This is revolutionary." "But I'm just making the music I feel," Elvis replied. "I grew up hearing all these different kinds of music, gospel in church, blues on Beale Street, country on the radio. To me it's all just music. That's exactly why it's so powerful," Peter responded. "You don't see the boundaries because you didn't grow up thinking they had to exist." While Peter interviewed Elvis over coffee, the meeting inside was heating up. The three men were deciding the young singer's fate. Colonel Parker argued, "The kid is talented but raw. I can shape him. I've been managing acts for 20 years. I can make him acceptable to mainstream America while keeping enough edge to satisfy the teenagers." Steve Scholes countered, "What if he can't be shaped? What if he gets out of control? What if this integration of musical styles spreads? We could lose everything we've built." The third man insisted, "Then we finish him. We control the radio stations, the record distribution, the venues. He's just one kid from Memphis. We can destroy him if we have to." But by then Peter had already written his story. The next morning it appeared in the Memphis Press Scimitar newspaper with the headline, "A New Voice. Elvis Presley is Redefining Music." Peter wrote about their conversation, about the music Elvis was making, about what it might mean for the future. This article changed everything. The next day, hundreds of calls flooded Sun Records. People were curious about Elvis. They wanted to hear his music. They wanted to know when he was performing next. Sam Phillips called Elvis into his office again. "Elvis, the big companies want you. RCA, Columbia, they're all interested. But be careful, son. They might try to change you, make you into something safe and predictable." "Mr. Phillips, I don't want to change. I just want to make my music," Elvis said. "Then you have to be strong, kid, because your music is going to change the world, but the world's going to try to change your music first." Colonel Parker called Elvis again that day, but his approach was completely different. Instead of trying to intimidate, he was trying to win the young man over. "Elvis, I want to work with you. I can make you a star, bigger than you ever dreamed, but it has to be on terms we can both live with." "Well, what would those terms be, Colonel?" Elvis asked cautiously. "The untouchability of your music, your artistic integrity. Whatever you do, no one can interfere with your music. That's got to be written into any contract." Elvis was surprised. This wasn't what he'd expected from the meeting he'd overheard. "What changed your mind, Colonel?" "That newspaper article, the phone calls, the reaction. I realized we can't control this thing you've started. We can either get on board or get run over. I'd rather get on board." In December 1954, Elvis made his debut on Louisiana Hayride, broadcast from Shreveport. This was a huge step up from playing local venues around Memphis. The Hayride was heard across the South, and performing there meant you were a real professional. The 1,200-seat municipal auditorium was packed that night. When they announced his name, the crowd roared. Elvis had never heard anything like it. When he started singing "That's All Right," the audience erupted. Girls were screaming. People were jumping out of their seats. The whole place went wild. By his third song, the audience was completely out of control. Those three men from the secret meeting stood backstage, watching the phenomenon unfold before them. After the concert, Steve Scholes approached Elvis. His attitude completely transformed. "Elvis, we were wrong. You're not just a musician. You're a phenomenon. This is bigger than any of us imagined." At the end of 1955, after months of negotiations, Elvis signed with RCA Records. The price was $35,000 for his contract from Sun Records, plus $5,000 as a bonus for Elvis personally. It was an incredible amount of money at that time, more than most people made in 3 years. But what was really important was that the young singer hadn't lost control over his music. Colonel Parker, now his manager, had negotiated unprecedented artistic freedom for such a young, unproven artist. In January 1956, Elvis made his first RCA recordings in Nashville. They recorded Heartbreak Hotel, a song darker and more mysterious than anything he'd done before. When it was released in April, it shot to #1 on the country charts, #1 on the pop charts, and even made it onto the rhythm and blues charts. No song had ever done that before. There was no turning back now. Elvis was no longer just a regional curiosity. He was a national sensation. 1956 was the year everything exploded for Elvis. Heartbreak Hotel was followed by Don't Be Cruel and Hound Dog, both hitting #1. But the real breakthrough came when Ed Sullivan booked him for his show. Sullivan was the most powerful man on television. On September 9, 1956, Elvis appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show via remote feed from Hollywood.
60 million people watched, more than half the population of America. The audience reaction was unlike anything television had ever seen, but the cameras only showed Elvis from the waist up. CBS was afraid that his hip movements were too suggestive for family television. The irony was that by censoring his performance, they made it even more exciting. People knew something was happening below the camera line, and their imaginations filled in the rest. After that night, everything changed completely. Fan letters poured in by the thousands. Concert promoters offered astronomical sums. Hollywood called with movie deals. But most importantly, Elvis's music had spread to all of America, and America would never be the same.
With success came profound losses. The pressure was enormous. Everywhere Elvis went, crowds followed. He couldn't live anything resembling a normal life, and some people hated what he represented. There were protests, record burnings, preachers condemning him from their pulpits. His mother Gladys struggled with his fame. She was proud of him, but worried constantly. In 1958, she died suddenly of a heart attack. She was only 46. Elvis was devastated. She had been his anchor, the one person who still saw him as just her son. "Never lose yourself," she had told him during their last conversation. "Always stay that boy from Tupelo." Her death nearly destroyed him, and then came his draft notice. The Army wanted him, just like any other young American man. Elvis served in Germany from 1958 to 1960. Colonel Parker wanted him to join special services and entertain troops, but Elvis refused. He wanted to be treated like any other soldier, to prove he wasn't trying to avoid his duty. Those 2 years away from music gave him time to think, to grieve for his mother, to figure out who he was beyond the fame and hysteria. In Germany, he was just another GI. It was during his army service that he met Priscilla Baulu, the daughter of an Air Force officer. She was only 14 when they met, beautiful and innocent. When Elvis returned from the army in 1960, Colonel Parker had a new plan: movies. He'd signed Elvis to a multi-picture deal with Hal Wallace at Paramount Studios. The money was incredible, but there was a catch. Elvis could only make movie soundtracks. No more independent recording sessions. No more following his musical instincts. Between 1960 and 1969, Elvis made 31 movies. Some were successful at the box office, but he knew he was wasting his talent. The songs were written by committee, designed to be harmless and commercial. There was none of the fire, none of the danger that had made him famous. During this period, Elvis felt disconnected from his music, from his fans, from himself. He was going through the motions, collecting paychecks, but his heart wasn't in it. By 1968, Elvis was tired of making bad movies and singing forgettable songs. His record sales had declined. The Beatles and the Rolling Stones dominated the charts. Many people thought he was finished, a relic from the previous decade. Then NBC offered him a television special. Originally supposed to be a Christmas show, producer Steve Binder had a different vision. He wanted to show the real Elvis, the dangerous one, who had started the rock and roll revolution. For the first time in years, Elvis was excited about music again. When he put on that black leather outfit and sat down with his guitar, he felt like his old self for the first time in years. When he sang "If I Can Dream" at the end of the show, he wasn't just performing. He was making a statement about who he was, what he believed in. When the show aired in December, it was a huge success. Suddenly Elvis was relevant again. The success of the '68 comeback special led to Elvis's return to live performing. In 1969, he opened at the International Hotel in Las Vegas, with a month-long residency. He hadn't performed live regularly since 1957. Opening night was electric. When Elvis walked on stage in that white jumpsuit, the roar was deafening. Las Vegas became his home base for the next 8 years. He performed there twice a year, doing month-long runs that sold out every night. But Vegas also became his prison. The lifestyle was destructive. Late nights, prescription drugs, the pressure of doing 2 shows a night. He was isolated from the real world, surrounded by yes-men. His marriage to Priscilla fell apart. When Lisa Marie was born in 1968, Elvis was overjoyed, but he wasn't a good husband or father. By the mid-1970s, Elvis's health was deteriorating. He was overweight, dependent on prescription drugs, often exhausted. But something magical still happened when he got on stage. The music could still transport him, still make him feel alive. Some of his greatest performances came during this period. His version of My Way became definitive. When he sang Unchained Melody at his last concert, sitting at the piano, it was as powerful as anything he'd ever done. That final concert, June 26, 1977, in Indianapolis, Elvis could barely make it to the stage, but once he was there, the music took over. For those 2 hours, he was young again, powerful again, connected to something larger than himself. Elvis Presley died at Graceland on August 16, 1977. He was 42 years old, far too young, worn out by success and excess, and the pressure of being Elvis Presley. But his music didn't die with him. The revolution that started in that Sun Records studio in 1954 is still continuing. Rock and roll wasn't just a music genre, it was a cultural earthquake that changed everything. It broke down racial barriers, generational barriers, social barriers. It gave young people a voice and a sound that was theirs alone. In that secret meeting in November 1954, those three men thought they could control or destroy what Elvis represented. They were wrong. The music was bigger than any of them, bigger than Elvis himself. It had a life of its own. Today, more than 4 decades after his death, young musicians still discover Elvis's early recordings and feel that same electric shock he felt when he first combined gospel, country, and blues into something entirely new. If there's one lesson to take from Elvis Presley's story, it's this: find your authentic voice and never compromise it, no matter how much pressure you face. The music business will try to change you, make you safe and predictable. Elvis Aaron Presley was a poor kid from Tupelo who stumbled onto something powerful and rode it as far as it would take him. He made mistakes, hurt people he loved, lost himself sometimes in the glitter and glamour. But the music was real. The music mattered. His story reminds us to find what makes us feel alive, what makes us feel like we're touching something eternal, and hold on to it with everything we have. Because in the end, that's all we really leave behind, the moments when we were completely, authentically ourselves. The boy who stood in that alley behind Sun Records, overhearing men plotting to destroy his career, became the king of rock and roll, not because he followed the rules, but because he broke them. Not because he did what the industry wanted, but because he stayed true to the music in his soul. Thank you very much.